Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blueprint podcast. I can't believe we're on episode 7 already. Today, I'm glad to be joined by Jakub from Lette AI. Jakub and his co-founder Mohan both had a very successful stint in Nori, and after seeing the challenges that tenants and landlords face firsthand, they decided to tackle one of the biggest pain points in modern life: renting. Their startup, Lette AI, is using automation and AI to completely rethink the rental process, and since launch, they've already processed over 300,000 rental applications, helping property managers and tenants move from lead to lease faster and with far less friction. In this episode, we chat about what sparked the initial idea, how AI is transforming an industry that's been slow to change, and what's next for these guys after closing their pre-seed round. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and let's get into it. Good afternoon, Jakub. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jack. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, look, ready to get stuck into question one. Look, both yourself and Mohan obviously came from Nori. That's your background. But what was the spark, I suppose, that led you to start Lette AI, and what is the focus for when it comes to real estate?
Yeah. I guess our background in Nori is kind of instrumental to it all. It was our first kind of startup job. Mohan and myself were the kind of first few employees. We always fight who the first one was. It's technically Mohan, but I've been kind of helping Connor out as a contractor for a bit. So it's a bit of a debate. But I guess initially I never taught myself as a founder or even kind of ever wanting to become one. I joined Nori just because I've worked in big companies beforehand. Didn't really enjoy it too much, to be honest. I always found leaving college thinking you're going to conquer the world, and then you go into big corporates and it's quite slow paced and not very exciting. So I was looking for something different. Exactly, yeah. I wasn't getting paid that much at the time either, so it wasn't exactly golden. But I came across Connor Sheridan. I think it's like a Silicon Republic article of like Q1 NDRC accelerator. And at the time I was kind of moving, I was like a product owner type of role. And I was looking to move more into design side of things. I was doing that part-time during my master's. I met Connor and I just kind of started working away for him. And then he's, raised a lot of funding, built a team, and I was one of the ones that kind of kicked it off from kind of day zero. And then Mohan came about, and we've worked together for I think almost 3 years. And we've developed like a really strong working relationship where, I had his back, he had mine. We both worked super hard. We built a cool product. And over those couple of years, we've learned what it takes to build in B2B. And, we started thinking like maybe we should one day do something ourselves. And Nori was like free university for us, basically. Seeing what it takes from a founder. Obviously, Connor was on his own, and then there's two of us. They're like, okay, there's two of us. We have very complementary skill sets. Obviously, me being in kind of product design, Mohan being engineering, and other stuff. That was really crucial to find somebody that I could do it with. I don't think I'd start it if it wasn't with Mohan. I don't think I'm that crazy to do it by myself. And real estate, why real estate? I guess it's somewhat similar to hospitality, which is what Nori is in. So the kind of same playbook somewhat applies. Obviously, it is a different industry, but it's a huge industry. There's tools out there, but a lot of them are super outdated. They're dominated by a couple of players. So naturally, we started kind of looking into more and more. And I think everybody has rented at some stage or is renting, and knows the pains of reaching out to an estate agent, not hearing anything back. We spend a lot of money on our rent, especially in Dublin. It's actually even super difficult to get a rental, so it adds to the frustration. So we've both felt that. I lived in London for a period of time, and it's the sort of what we call BTRs, which are like built to rent apartments. Nobody really owns in there. It's just rentals. They're very nice apartments, good facilities. And we sort of noticed that a lot of those buildings run off kind of apps, like resident apps, and they're usually quite poor quality. But then when you look into those companies, they're making millions, they're doing super well. And we're kind of scratching our heads like, okay, there must be room in the market for something better. And the idea has really changed from the kind of resident side to then obviously going out and meeting teams and seeing the the organization at work and really where the pain points are. And the kind of aha moment was like real estate and property management specifically. 80% of the job is administration. It's like, don't let like selling sunset fool you. It seems like a super glamorous job. People wear nice clothes, nice suits, nice cars, but it's a really tough admin heavy job with a lot of volume. Not just on the application side, but the maintenance, operations is just never ending, and a lot of it's very repetitive. So a lot of property managers, the job is tough. It's high kind of job dissatisfaction. There's a lot of churn. So we thought it was perfect with this kind of AI storm coming our way. It's like, hey, this is a really good use case to actually use this new technology in the sector.
100%. And you're right, picking up on the fact that like the rental process right now, it is just notoriously painful. You mentioned some of them, but what are the sort of core or biggest inefficiencies then that you're trying to solve, and I suppose utilize AI to do so?
Yeah, so there's inefficiencies like throughout the entire property kind of management life cycle. We started off with this lead to lease space. The reason for it was there's a lot of tooling, so it's very hard to come in, especially we work with like bigger institutions, right? We don't really work with landlords that have a couple of properties. We work with guys that have 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
So it's hard to come in as just two guys and say, hey, like leave all your tools behind that you're paying a lot of money for and come use this thing.
Yeah.
So we needed to find a wedge in where there wasn't a lot of tools in the market, but it was very manual, oftentimes done by like a person. And we noticed the application process, which in Dublin, like if you put up a property in a specific price point, like, I don't know, 1,600 euro for a one bed, which is like a good price apparently nowadays, you'll get hundreds and hundreds of applications. And there would be a person, usually like a full-time administrator or sometimes the property manager would do it themselves, and they would just manually read through all those applications. But the problem was a lot of those applications have very little information in them. So people would say, hey, is this still available? Like no one's going to be contacting you if you just put in this. So we basically created a system that kind of shoots out to all applicants and collects all that information. Basically says, hey, these applicants are suitable based on very simple criteria, by the way, because when building AI, especially in property, like this people's homes you're talking about, you need to make sure you know when to stop the AI, that the AI isn't selecting candidates, because how does AI know if Jakub is a better tenant? Like we really don't. So it's about basic criteria to qualify. Say, Jack is good enough for this studio apartment because it's just Jack. But if it's Jack, Jakub, and the 7 dogs want to move in, okay, well maybe that won't work because that property, isn't made for so many tenants. So it's about basically creating an initial kind of line of screening and using technology to do that, so that you can handle more volume and you can focus on the candidates and applicants that are suitable for that property. So instead of dealing with here's random 500, like here's like qualified to 250, which cuts the volume in half. It's still a lot of volume. But like I said, it's very important to say like AI doesn't go past that. AI doesn't select who's coming through. That's a human decision. And what AI does is compiles all the information required to make that decision from a human perspective.
Fantastic. Awesome. From our conversation, from what I gathered, you've already processed over 300,000 applications since launch. What has that early traction then, taught you about the market?
Yeah, it's taught us a lot. Like first of all, it taught me that every market's different. So like we went live in the UK recently as well, and Ireland's different to the UK. Dublin, is probably different to a city like Cork to an extent. Although I guess Ireland is a unique case in general because the rental crisis in Ireland is horrendous. Like we really don't have enough supply. Whereas in London, I was actually last week there. You've got the same apartments, next to each other with like vacancy rates, like they're sitting there empty. So you're obviously not getting hundreds of applications per apartment, especially if they look very similar, price points very similar, similar areas. So very different. So we needed to make sure that obviously we don't just build something that works well in Ireland, because Ireland is all about volume. A place like London is more of like kind of sales. It's like, hey, we need to get people through the door. In Ireland, they're dying to come through the door. So it's how do we create a system that can kind of cater for both? Because obviously Ireland is not a big enough market for us to build a venture-backed business. So we need to make sure that it can work in London. So I guess the geography is important, but also the asset itself. Like not every apartment's made equal. Like you could have a studio apartment, central, Dublin city centre, and you could have a penthouse in Sandyford,
Yeah.
Very different. Like I bet you the penthouse, if it costs several €1,000, it's not going to get as much volume. But then again, to find the right applicant, it takes slightly different criteria. So the system has to adapt. And the way we went about is to make sure that the user can actually input the criteria that's required into the system. So it's not one size fits all. Is very, very important.
Okay, fantastic. Where does, I suppose, AI make the biggest difference in what you're actually building then? Like, how can you see this continuing to evolve?
Yeah, so back to my previous point on knowing where AI stops, I never see our platform as like fully agentic and become a property manager because ethical concerns, B, it's a licensed profession, especially in Ireland. Like you can't do certain things without having a license and have studied and passed examinations, which AI obviously hasn't. But where I see it's almost like a kind of co-pilot or assistant to help you with the 1,000 small repetitive things and bring something to you for approval, or hey, like this is what I've gathered, this is the decision you have to make, or I don't even know what decision to make here. It's funny for the human to kind of take on board. So it's really about reducing the repetitive nature of the job. And as a result, provide that kind of immediate kind of tenant or applicant experience as well. Because like, hey, if we can answer something because, we have reference data to be able to answer it, great. If I can't answer something, because they're human. If I shouldn't answer something, I know I shouldn't answer it. And again, the property manager comes in. I'm sort of trying to flip the kind of admin to kind of hospitality aspect of the job, because I think more and more so with the price points we're seeing, property management has become more of a hospitality grade style service. So I'd like to be 80% hospitality. Like I know my tenants, I kind of give them a good service, and like the 20% more kind of administrative, as opposed to the 80% administration, 20%, hey, I go meet people. Especially in the UK, Ireland not as much, but in the UK you'd have these huge towers. The leasing office would be in the building, so the property manager is physically in the building looking after its residents. It's a human job, and again, if there's more competition in a place like London, how do you retain your tenants? Well, you form a relationship, you provide a better service, you offer better facilities. You have to get a bit creative, and it's about giving that creative time to the human to be able to try and retain that person once we get them through the door.
Okay. For the techies out there, do you mind walking through the sort of stack and reasons for selecting certain technology? I think it'd be good to hear more about that.
I think we need Mohan in on that conversation.
Oh yeah.
But I guess obviously in recent years, AI has become more accessible. So obviously we're working with OpenAI, and as I said, it's a mixture of using OpenAI to kind of extract specific data or interpret specific unstructured information structuring in our platform. So we very much still have like this kind of classic B2B platform, with agents kind of around it feeding information back. So that's sort of how we've structured it so far.
Okay, no problem at all. Real estate then has obviously been like pretty slow to adopt tech. So how are the, I suppose, like landlords and property managers that you're talking about, how have they responded to this so far?
Surprisingly, really, really well.
Oh, good.
I was surprised too, because I think the sector is painted as this kind of old school and outdated. Not necessarily what I've experienced, like there's aspects of it. But there's also different verticals within the property vertical. Like you've got your classic real estate agents who do lettings on the side, and they kind of have a portfolio across the country and a couple of houses here, a couple of apartments there. A lot of our customers are like institutional landlords, so like they literally do apartment blocks concentrated in urban areas. Those guys are very open to innovation. I actually think it's a very interesting time where everyone's interested in AI. No one's really overlooking it. They're trying to learn and see how can this make my day-to-day better. So, we're not getting laughed out of the room.
Or
we spent,
replaced,
like I said, exactly. Like I said, we spent the last week in London. We've attended a conference. We were in this like small little tech area, and we had a very vague poster saying, "Hey, AI property operations, come chat to us." Everybody there chatted to us, talking all day. We booked plenty of meetings because people are interested in, it's like, okay, things are changing. I see the need for that change. I see the use case here, and I'm interested to find out more. So far it's been super, super positive. I'm getting the right signals from the industry. Like, when I go to a conversation, when it's just discovery or sales, like people are they're agreeing, they're nodding, they're excited, they're talking to us, which is really, really good. Because I remember even a couple of years ago, I've worked in kind of AI space for a while. I'd be like, oh yeah, cool, but no one really understood the application of AI. I think because now with ChatGPT, pretty much everyone's using it. I don't think people write their own emails anymore. People understand the use case and how it can be adopted. Whereas like a couple of years ago, it's more like predictive machine learning and heavy on data. And it was hard to kind of try and foresee how will this be applied to my day-to-day, my business. Some cases were more obvious than others. But no, so far it's really, really good. Super positive.
Perfect. I think we discussed this. So you just recently closed off your sort of pre-seed round. What will this, I suppose, next phase of growth look like for you guys?
Yeah, we're venture backed. So we've just sort of onboarded the last team members. So we built a really strong team. We've also hired a head of sales, John, who's based in London. So it's really going after the UK market. Like I said, Ireland was a testing ground. Obviously, both Mohan and myself are based in Ireland, in Dublin. But also, like I said, the market in Ireland's very, very different to the rest of Europe. So going after the UK is the number one priority over the next few months. We've already have some great conversations on onboarding some massive partners, which is great. Doubling down on building, just build. Raising money, it's very time intensive. Trying to build a company, hire a team, it all takes time. So it's really about creating this machine and a drumbeat of building great product, validating. That's sort of the focus for the next kind of 3 to 6 months, and that's really as far as you can go in in the startup world. We're not really planning ahead of that.
Okay. Look, final question from me. I think you'd be the best person to ask. What advice might you give to like other founders who are trying to bring AI into, legacy sort of typically slow moving industries?
Yeah, good question. I've been thinking about that one. So the number one thing I would say is find the right partners. Where that's a design partner, innovation partner, whatever we call it, or customer, even if they're paying you straight away. The reason for that is like AI is not magic as much as it seems to be. It's not going to magically solve all their problems. I think the right customer partner needs to be able to assess their current process, recognize what works, what doesn't work, and be open to adapt. Because I think the worst thing you could do for your business earlier on is just copy paste an inefficient process, splash a bit of AI on it in the hopes that it creates a product others will want to buy. That's not necessarily the case. So whether that's through a great partner or several great partners, ideally, so that you're able to compare and see which way is the best way to go forward. And of course, identify your vertical really, really well. And I think that's, like I said, real estate could mean anything from sales to lettings to institutional property to investments. The vision can be great and it can tackle a lot of that, but you can't do it from day one. And I also think it's the ability to sell the journey as well, right? Especially for an early stage business. Like no one's going to be super impressed with, kind of small product straight away, or your proof of concept or your prototype. It's about to sell the journey and trying to convey like why you're the right person or people that can solve it for them, with them, how it's going to work, being super honest. Like I always say, my background is product design and product management. And I use that to my advantage to say, look, my job is to come spend time with you and your teams, see how it works, propose changes, take your feedback, work directly with you, but also to say no. It's like, hey, I don't think this is the right way to do it, and this is why, and actually try to propose that change. So there's an element of consulting in it as well, because obviously early on you don't have the scale, and you want to make sure that whatever you build together you can sell to the wider market and not kind of work in isolation in the bubble. So yeah, I think these are the most kind of important factors. I guess another one is when rolling out, I think measuring from day one is super important, because ROI on AI, it can be quantitative or it can be qualitative. So like the initial signals we got that we're on the right track, people are saying, I just really like using it. It's just better, It's like, yeah, it does save me like an hour a day or 2 hours a day, sometimes more. But when you're trying to sell something as well to the customer, like, okay, 2 hours savings, and what do you use their wage for that? Like, it could be meaningful, but also the qualitative aspects of like, oh, I actually enjoy my job a lot more now. Hopefully reduce churn because I don't have to do this same annoying thing over and over again. So I think trying to track ROI to see if you're on the right track, but also show the customer that, like, look, you're right, and if you show them you're right once or twice, they're going to let you in on more and more and more, because they're going to start believing you, trusting you, and they're willing to kind of give even more of their time and collaboration.
Awesome, that's great advice. Look, that's all for me. I just want to finish up again just by saying, like, thanks so much for spending time this afternoon. You guys have been super busy. As always, this will be up on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and I'll be sure to tag you so people can connect with you and as we learn more.
Nice one, Jack. Thanks very much for having me.